Hey, welcome to a new episode of Skin in the Game. I'm your host, John Cimperman, and not without my host today, Bonnie Shea. So I'm going to take this one solo, but actually very thrilled because I have two guests. First, going to be joined by hockey pioneer Bonnie Shea, who is still playing out there still playing hockey in her 80s, and quite the inspirational story. And then I've also have Eric Herman, who is the partner at Buffalo Rehab Group. And Eric and I are going to talk about how we can all stay active and healthy and add longevity to our sporting careers. So stay tuned for both interviews. And Bonnie Shea, Bonnie, thanks for joining us on our episode of Skin in the Game today.
Well, you're certainly welcome. I feel real privileged to do this.
Well, I'm privileged to have you on the program. I still play adult hockey, and you're an inspiration for me. And I know for me personally, you're gonna keep me on the ice. But I wanted to just kind of chat with you, and for our listeners and our viewers, where did you discover that passion for ice hockey? Where did it start?
Well, it started at age 7. I grew up across the street of a hockey rink. It was our school hockey rink. Elementary school was right there. And I was just right with my boys because there was no girls in the neighborhood. So I grew up with boys, and that's what the boys did. And so I was across the street all the time, morning, noon, and night as much as I could. And that's when the fellow that was seeing me asked me if I wanted to join the hockey team. And so, of course, that's how it started.
Was that an outdoor pond hockey there in Minnesota? Was it an
No,
actual
no,
inside?
no,
Okay,
no. It
yeah,
was a regular hockey rink. We had playgrounds in those days,
right.
and there was a warming shack, and of course, with the old potbelly stove, and we'd sit and freeze our mittens on it and smell the good smell of burning mittens. And we always had a caretaker that would flood, or people would help.
Yeah.
And we'd have to shovel the rink ourselves. We had no Zambonis or anything like that. So we'd skate and shovel it clear. And no, it was maintained by the city, and so that's what I did. I
Yeah.
I just skated all the time, and even when it wasn't open, I'd go over and sit on the steps and put on my skates and wait for the fellow to open it and skate till I had to go home.
So you found that passion, you caught that bug, you became part of a lot of camaraderie at that time with the boys playing, and then reading your story and kind of looking at some of the background at age 15, that stopped. And if you could tell us the story of what happened at age 15 and your hockey career put on pause.
What happened was our particular rink didn't have enough people, or boys, myself included, to go to the next level. And so I had to go to another hockey rink, which was just, a few blocks away. And those coaches said, "Oh, no, we will not have a girl playing on our team." And so that kind of hockey ended. But I went to high school that next year, and my health teacher said, "Bonnie, I've been reading about you in the paper because I really was good, and I scored lots of goals, and I was the best player on my team." And so he read those articles all the time and said, "I would like you to try out for our high school hockey team." I was ecstatic, of course. Went home and told my parents, who really never wanted me to play in the first place, and they didn't really say much. And the next day I came to school, and in health class, he said, "Bonnie, I'm so sorry. Our principal said there will be no girls playing hockey on our high school hockey team." So at 15, the doors kind of closed as far as organized hockey for me. Not that I didn't continue playing across the street with pickup games and so forth, but as far as an organized game, I was done.
Yeah, were there any, and I'm talking, we're talking the state of hockey, Minnesota. Were there any other girls' programs or girls playing at that time in those years?
No, not at that of my knowledge. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody in Duluth. There was one gal that played a little bit, but she was the only girl, and she was on a whole nother hockey rink. But she came after me,
Mm-hmm.
and but no, we never had any opportunity to. And one of my good friends that I played with on the women's team, she had the same experience as this other gal, that they wouldn't let the girls on the hockey rink.
Right,
So
right,
yeah.
right. All right.
Even though it's a state of hockey way down the 50s, it wasn't for women or girls.
Yeah, sounds like it was the state for half of us in hockey, right?
Uh-huh. Correct.
Now this is where the story gets even, I guess, the chapter turns, right? The page turns, and then at the age of 40, you are rediscovered and you have the opportunity to lace them back up. So walk us through what happened then at age 40 after being quote unquote semi-retired.
Okay, well, I was sitting in my living room and an ad came on the television, and some fellow came on and said, my daughter is playing at UMD, or is a student at UMD, and I'd like to start a women's club team up there. Anybody in the area is welcome to try. And I thought, oh my gosh, is this for real? So I called him and I said, I'm 40 years old. I haven't played organized hockey for 25 years, but I'm willing to come out and try. And he went, go ahead. He said, we're looking for people. So, I was 40 playing with 20-year-olds, but I was still pretty good. It came right back. And so that's where I've been ever since.
Right. And how many years do you then play college hockey?
Well, it was just a club team. It wasn't
team,
college.
Right. Sure,
Yeah.
sure. But you were representing the college, right? Yep.
Yes, we were the club college team
Mhm.
until the women came in the late 80s, I think.
Yeah.
UMD women started their hockey team. I'm really don't know the definite date on that, but we were called the UMD Lady Bulldogs. And then when the university started an actual UMD hockey team for women, then we just changed our name, but we were still the same team.
Yeah. So 40 years later, you're still playing the great game of hockey. And I guess as someone also who is passionate about the sport, I really want, from your words, because you probably played lots of sports and participated in a lot of things, what is it to you about hockey that continues, to bring you out to the rink?
People ask me that, and my friends will say, how come you keep doing this? And I said, I don't know. I just love it. I think it's the skating, the physicalness, the friends I've met, the people. Right. I really can't understand why I love it so much, but it's probably something I just hope I can do for a long time.
Well, and that's funny. I talk to players that I still play with, and, I'm not sure if it's as much they enjoy being on the ice or if it's the camaraderie in the locker room afterwards, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Well, it's with my camaraderie, they're all so much younger than I am. So that's a little different, than, people your own age. But yeah, just being on a team, I think really is what I enjoy a lot. And, I haven't had that for so many years. And I've just met lots of good people and continuing to meet good people because of this sport. Now, I can't believe what's happened since this NPR came out. It's just been unreal. What's the contacts I've had since then?
Yeah, well, we talk a lot on this program about the importance of sport, physically for people, right? But also mentally. And I think that's part of that social experience and that, that camaraderie, and it just keeps the body and the mind fresh and humbly. And I think I'm going to, you'll agree with me because I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but something about the sport of hockey is physically you're gliding, you're not pounding, right? As much as you would be running.
Yeah.
And then it's probably, one of the ultimate team sports because you don't score unless you get a pass. So there's a little, right?
And you're right about the exhilaration, in the few years that I were responsible for taking care of my parents. It was very stressful and so forth. And I never gave up hockey during that time. I did give up curling because I couldn't do everything and take care of them. But when I got out on that rink, everything went away. I mean, it was like I could hardly wait to get on the rink. Like you said, the gliding, the skating, just getting that stress out of me, maybe is what I would say. Maybe that's what it does. It just makes me feel so invigorated. And I can be here at 9:00 at night and have to drive into town to play a game or practice. And I'm thinking, how am I ever going to, and I get in the car. And once I get on that rink, it's like daylight. And coming home, it's still like I feel energized, and it's hard to
Yeah.
get to sleep
Yeah.
because I
Right.
am so energized. Yeah.
Right. You got the, yeah,
Hmm.
the adrenaline, the endorphins,
Yep.
everything going. No, and it's with hockey too is yeah, we don't always get, especially the adult leagues, we don't always get the best ice times.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other thing we've talked a lot here on Skin in the Game is quote unquote lifetime sports, right? Sports you can get into and you can play for your entire life. And we talk about the paddle sports, and we talk about golf. There's not many folks who after high school play tackle football. There's not many folks after high school that play hardball, but hockey, and I've seen it more and more, is one of those sports, and you're a testament to it. You can play for a long time. And something? I've seen people now who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s picking up the game for the first time, and that's encouraging.
Yes, we have a team here that's doing that. A young gal organized that, and we have moms that have never played and are just learning how, and they had such a following. And so I joined that little group too to kind of
Hmm.
help them out. Just some of them 30s and 40s are just starting to, because their kids did it, or
Right,
their brothers did it, and maybe they did it with their brothers when they were younger, and now I'm going, oh, I got a girls bunch I can do this with, or a
right,
late women's. I shouldn't say girls, I guess.
right.
So yes, it is. I think it's become more and more a sport for older people, as long as we can stay upright.
Yeah, right. But physically, how are the knees holding up? How are the hips holding up? Still being able to, get out there? Is it still on a weekly basis or so?
Yes, during the winter,
Mm-hmm.
we run from probably October through March. I used to play in the summer too, but I do live on a lake, and always got lake company and things,
Right.
and it was just tough to go in. Same with ball. I used to play ball, and then come in. I miss all the people out here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fortunately, I have not had any. I mean, I have aches and pains. Don't
Sure.
get me wrong,
Sure.
but they're functioning. My
Right.
knees are functioning. My hips are functioning, but my knees aren't as bad. My hips give me a little trouble, but
Yeah.
I have to admit I'm stiff. There's no question.
Yeah, well, you're preaching to the choir there too. so, so hey, I'm speaking here with Bonnie Shea, who Bonnie, I'm going to call you a pioneer in women's sports, and one continue to be a trailblazer. Give me a sense of what the makeup is during the winter, the makeup of the league, or the teams or the skates that you're participating in. What's the rest of the roster look wise?
Oh, as far as my teammates,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
oh,
teammates, yeah.
well, my teammates run anywhere from the early 20s to me. Many professions. We have a whole scope of people. Some moms, some married, some not married. They have a passion for the game as well. And we've changed a few. We add a
Mm-hmm.
few, and we belong to a league called WHAM, which is Women's Hockey Association Minnesota. And we are in what we call the C1 league. There are many, starts from A all the way to C3. You can't have any high school or college hockey in our league of C1, so that you can kind of get an idea of, these are
Mm-hmm. Sure.
gals that played with their brothers, or started out on their own somehow. So yeah, we're just a bunch of gals that love the sport.
That's great. That's great. Speaking of women loving the sport, and I'm loving to see the growth of the women's game. As both a coach and as someone who's actually been on the ice with, a lot of women, the skill, the drive, the creativity, it's got to be very prideful for you to even experience what we all did here in the U.S. with the women's gold medal. If you could just kind of walk us through kind of your emotions on how you've seen the women's game change and what that Olympic medal meant to you.
Well, yes. In fact, I was just at the Frost Games last Thursday and Friday in the cities. They hosted me there, which was really nice.
Awesome.
And I guess my biggest thing is I can't believe how physical they're getting. The change of that. It wasn't that physical when they first started. And I guess I'm not real fond of that. And
Mm-hmm.
same with the men. Same with the men. I just feel that the women had such finesse. It was
Yeah.
like they could skate, they could stick handle, they could pass, and now they're getting physical. And it's kind of the biggest can do the best as
Right.
far as I can see.
Right.
But yes, and I always kid because yes, I'm very, very happy about the professional league. And even my granddaughters were played high school and had the opportunity I didn't. But I was kidding when one day and I said, well, I was really going to try out for that Minnesota team, but it was too much of a commitment. So I always say that, as far as a joke, because I just, yes, I sat in my seats that night, those 2 nights, and I just thought, gee, could I have ever made it? I don't know that, but, I never had the opportunity to try. The
Right.
same with high school. I never had that opportunity. So, or college, would have been fun to be on a college team as well. But,
Yeah. Well,
I was just born too early. There's nobody's fault. I mean, it's
right.
just the way it is.
Right. Well, Bonnie, I do think, and the term that comes up when I talk to you, and no pun intended, but an icebreaker, because
Hmm.
it took a principal to say, in your case, no girls on this team, to finally principal saying, well, why not? Or why not have girls teams? So it took a few Bonnie Sheas to break down those barriers, and you should be proud of where the game is today, because without those risks that you took, without pushing those boundaries, we may not be where we are today.
Well, and also, we have an all-star game here in March, which the Iron Range All-Stars and Duluth area All-Star Girls High School, they have named the trophy after me, so
Oh,
it's the
that's
Bonnie
great.
Shea Cup, and they have asked me to present it. And each year I do that because they always had the boys.
Right.
3 years ago, they started the All-Star Girls, so it just feels so good to be part of that and see these young women again being able to be in part of something like that. And also, as I sat at the game, I looked at some of these little girls that were at the game and I thought, you've got an idea that maybe you could be one of them
Yeah.
someday. And,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of little kids there and a lot of little girls, playing, and
Right.
in between the period there of the game, and they interviewed them, and what do you want to do? And I want to be a professional hockey player. So,
Right.
they have their
That's awesome.
dreams. I mean, it's there whether they do it or not, but at least they've got the opportunity.
That's right. That's right. No, I mean, yes, you were a bit before your time, but even, my daughter, Bonnie, who's 30, when she was in high school, she was desperate to find enough girls in our small community to start a girls team, and there weren't enough. So even for her age, she was still before her time. What I've seen, at least here in the Western New York region, it's really come into its own really in the last 5 years, Bonnie. I don't know if Minnesota is a little ahead of us, but at least here, now you're starting to see, equity on both men and women, dedicated ice times, locker rooms. So, but again, you were before your time, and even the generation after you was before their time.
Yeah. And what I did do when you said that about finding enough girls, when I was a junior in my high school, I did organize a girls team called the Condon Rompers, and they were friends of mine, of course, but we had just enough for a team, and we played the little boys, the Pee Wee teams,
Mm-hmm.
and but the girls weren't very good, and they had their figure skates on. I mean, they allowed that. Nowadays you wouldn't dare go on a hockey rink with figure skates, but they allowed us to play against these the Pee-wees, they called them. But it was just 1 year, and that was the end of it. But
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was fun. I tried to get it going a little bit, but
yeah.
there wasn't much to do after that. So
So you mentioned the Bonnie Shea Cup, which sounds awesome. Is there also the? Do you have a number hanging in the rafters of a barn in Duluth?
yes, I do. It's called the Essentia Heritage Center, and in December of 2023, they honored me. They had Bonnie's night at the rink and honored me, and it was actually the All-Star game. I have a banner hung among others, but I think there's maybe 2 or 3 women up there besides myself. Yes, I do have a banner, and I also have a display case with some of my old pictures and so forth.
Awesome, awesome. Well earned, and congratulations.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
so, Bonnie, as we wrap up here, it's off season for you. So it's off season for hockey. So give us an idea, give our listeners an idea. What is the Bonnie Shea off season training regiment to get ready for the fall?
Well, as I mentioned, I live on a lake, so keeping my beach clean and taking care of this place. I mow by hand the lawn. It takes me probably 3 hours. I mean, it's a motorized, but it's a push mower.
Sure.
I haven't golfed in the last couple of years, but I normally like to golf in the summer. Occasionally, I'll hit the tennis racket, just depending if I can find people to play with. But my problem is all my friends can't do anything I do. And so I am very limited in doing things with people my own age. So I have to find a bunch of younger people, and it's not always easy. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's see. I think you found a little bit of a secret, and we're gonna, as we evolve this program, we're gonna talk to more physical therapists to say, okay, what is the secret of being active? And I don't know. Humbly, I think the secret of staying active is being active, right?
correct.
So,
And I think there's some genetic things to this too, probably. My mother didn't lived up until almost 97, and she was active pretty much too. And
Yeah.
they were golfers and so forth. But the genes, I imagine, I'm not sure, but I was active as a child, and I
Yeah.
think today's youth isn't as active as children. They're sitting around, and I mean, we were never home. We
Right.
played. It was either ball or I played football with the boys. I played basketball with the boys. I mean, I was always active.
Right.
And bicycling, we biked everywhere. And so I think as my body was developing way back then, and apparently can continue on now.
Yeah. Yeah, and a theme here on our program is also playing multiple sports, using all the different muscles. Don't focus on just one activity too early, because you'll get burned out, and physically you're not, as well-rounded.
Right. And, I downhill skied in the winter, and
Mhm.
so, and I curl in the winter. And that helps me with my, breathing, because I'm sweeping that rock a lot, and
Yeah.
I'm down and back, bending up and down. So,
Yeah.
I guess that helps me during the hockey season too, to curl. So yes, I just stay physical. And I feel if I'm not physical, I don't feel well.
Right.
The
Right.
minute I sit around for a long time when we have these dreary days and there's nothing, I just and then I get out, I just came back from down on the beach here, and I just thought, boy, do I ever feel good,
Mhm.
because I physically am lifting heavy things, moving my kayaks, just physical work around here. And I think I have a membership to a gym, but I don't get there very often, but I do have one. It's not that easy. I'm, 30 miles out of town. So
Yeah, it sounds like your place there on the lake is your gym, right? So
it is my gym. Yes, it is my gym.
well, Bonnie, I want to thank you for joining us. You're an inspiration to a lot of us, and again, congratulations on the Bonnie Shea Cup, on the jersey in the rafters, and more importantly, on staying active and staying out on the blades. So we really appreciate you joining us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to let my story be told, because I've been heard what an inspiration I am. So I feel obligated to keep going and to inspire people to don't give up on a dream.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're joined by Eric Herman, who is the partner chief clinical officer of Buffalo Rehab Group. What did you think of that interview with Bonnie?
Oh man, she is such a humble person. Really kind of love her perspective of her life, and she's done some amazing things, and she doesn't see it like that. She's just living her own life, right?
And just playing the game, and still playing the game that she loves.
It's pretty impressive. It really is.
I every year I wonder if is this my last year to lace them up, but the inspiration of Bonnie, I might have another 20 years left in the tank.
I know what you're feeling. I've had some injuries along the way that have kept me off the ice a little bit myself, and each time going back, it is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. What I really wanted to talk about is how we all become a little bit more like Bonnie Shea. How do we continue to stay active and do the things that we love? Because in talking to Bonnie, it's working around her pond or lacing up the skates that's what really keeps her going. So I know it's the big question, but really was thrilled you could join us to also give our listeners and our viewers some perspective on what is some of that secret sauce?
Yeah, the secret is to challenge ourselves, right? So it's like she's continuously challenging herself on a regular and daily basis. And when we see what she does, not because she really needs to, it's because what she wants to. And so that keeps her active and around her house, around her yard. She's got this beautiful place, it sounds like, I wish we could all be there. But like that kind of activity, it challenges her body physically. And so it prepares her to be able to be physical and continuous to do that. It's her body is adapting in ways to stay challenged.
Yeah.
And so it keeps her young.
Is it harder then? I'm assuming it's harder to get back into it if you take a long lapse.
Correct. Yeah. So if there's, for whatever reason, we have a couple weeks where we're not staying active, the first time you get active again, it is harder to get moving. Now, for a lot of us that maybe, have or had desk jobs for, 10, 15 years and we're not as active as we were in our 20s, all of a sudden in our 30s, it's a little bit harder to stay going if you're not finding ways to keep yourself active. And so she's just been someone that's just always been doing, always been going. So we see her not having the same kind of challenges to get back to activity that maybe some of us that don't stay active.
Are there certain sports, at least in your profession and with your group, Eric, that you see that there's more longevity to, that people, I'm not saying everyone is Bonnie Shea, but are there some activities that you see and actually recommend to older adults?
Well, it's important to stay active. It's important to challenge ourselves physically. Certain sports that people keep up with don't necessarily come with that same physical challenge that will help with longevity. And like golf, for example, It's a great sport, great to be outside. You're being active, but our bodies adapt and it doesn't keep us physically sound necessarily. But sports like pickleball, which is really coming to the forefront, in the last handful of years.
I got to say, I've had more people who picked up pickleball and then hurt a leg, an Achilles, an ankle. There are some issues that come out of jumping into that sport.
Well, right, because it doesn't seem physically demanding, and a lot of people can do it.
Yeah.
But if you're not trained right, so that's part of the conversation we're going to be getting to, is if you're not trained right for it, you're putting yourself in a position where there is a risk. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of, is that if I over-challenge myself, am I going to get hurt? Right. And it's important to stay active and be healthy and find things that you enjoy and you're passionate about. Again, going back to Bonnie's conversation, she is active because she's passionate about what she's doing and she really hasn't ever stopped.
Yeah.
And so like pickleball is a sport, though, that a lot of people can do it. It's not too demanding, but at the same time, it does have its risks if your body isn't prepared for some of those movements.
It's those stops and those starts.
The change of directions, yes.
Yeah.
A back step is one that we see a lot of. We do see a lot of pickleball injuries.
Well, I guess it's good for business.
I would rather people enjoying the outside and not in the clinic, yes.
But the one thing about hockey, and you come from a hockey family and your practice is in a hockey town, is there something that you've seen that, kind of the gliding and the flow and to that point, there's not necessarily the pounding when like running would be when you're skating. Are you seeing that more older adults are playing the game still? Well,
yes. So it's a sport that we can continue on because there's opportunities for us to continue on throughout our life. So typically what we see with hockey is that I play with a group Sunday mornings, and the one line that I was on the ice with, I noticed the entire forward line average age was 72 years old.
Wow, okay.
So
the silver blades.
It was, and they're still impressive. They're great skaters. They move the puck well, but like you said, it's low impact.
Yeah.
A couple of the guys I've seen as patients. They've had ankle injuries, they've had knee injuries, but again, they can get back to that sport because part of it is that they want to and they challenge themselves the right way, and it doesn't have the impact like you're saying. So it takes a lot of lower body strength, which is actually good for you. So the position for hockey, the squatting position, that is good for us, but you have to be able to challenge yourself in that way and have the right exercises to support those movements. And the gliding, the stop and start of it is good for us too. So where you take a shift off and you're sitting down for a couple minutes and you're back out there, it's not the same aggressive that you'll see with the NHL players playing, but there are peaks of like bursts of speed on and off, that's good for us.
That interval training,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
that is great for like our VO2 max training, which is one of the markers for longevity. It is a sport that if you do it often enough, that's the other thing too, is you can stay good at it for a long, long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're not playing often enough, like you'll see yourself decline, just like anything in life.
So if we could kind of dig into some of the research, what is out there that you're seeing that really talks about ways to improve performance at an older age, but more importantly, that longevity of active adults? What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Yeah, so stay healthy for long, right? Is that we want to, as I age, I want to be able to still do all the things I like, and then one day die. That would be ideal, right? Like we want our health span to match our lifespan, and so that longevity is our health span. And what we've seen for people deteriorating over time, they're living 20 years past where they're really healthy and active, right? That's not the life that I want to live. I want to be able to move and be active. And in order to do that, what we see is that with longevity, it's having a good VO2 max is like basically cardiac capacity. Can I work hard for a long enough period of time? Gait speed, so how fast you walk is another one to be working at. And as we get older, we see people slowing down with their speed. And there's a lot of reasons why we slow down. Lack of mobility, don't have the flexibility, lack of strength, lack of balance. That's another one, actually balance, having good single leg balance.
Yeah.
So there's some different tests we can do with that. And grip strength is another important one too. So having the grip strength is kind of a power metric for your upper body. It's linked to being able to carry and lift. When we look at those things, the VO2 max, gait speed, single leg balance, and grip strength, those are really key markers that you're doing well.
Yeah. And these are there specific, you said tests, so are these fitness tests? Is this something that when a patient comes in to see you, or is it something that a patient say, something, I'm looking to get back into these, maybe I should be tested to see where I can improve? Where do you see it, and how does a patient come to get these tests?
So the health system is a little bit tough to negotiate at times, and we often see people in sickness. And so if you're someone that I can do all the things I kind of want to be doing, but maybe I'm slowing down, but I don't know what's wrong with me, and I don't feel pain anywhere. But those are markers we can measure. You're right, and but it's not often the reason why we would see somebody. We are starting to see more people now. Maybe the script that we get from a physician is generalized weakness or deconditioning, but it's hard when it's an active 60-year-old, and then all of a sudden at 62, I can't do quite the same things I used to be able to, right? And we can test for these things, and we do test for these things. There isn't anything out there that I know of that really measures fitness and longevity as kind of one test that's widely accepted. There's all of these different variable tests independently, though, right? There isn't a great, easy, cost-effective way to measure VO2 max, as an example. So we do a 6-minute walk test in the clinic. So how far can you walk in 6 minutes?
Right. And
so that gives us a little bit of an idea of can you sustain a certain speed for long enough. But when we put all these tests together, so I'm trying to work on it personally.
Well, I'm just looking. I'm like, wow, this seems like a great opportunity to fill a gap that's there and be proactive in your health versus, you said, unfortunately, many times you're seeing a patient when there's been a traumatic experience or a traumatic injury.
Right. Yeah. So we see people after surgery or after they fall, and it's a lot of those patients is, man, I wish I would have seen you 10 years ago. Because you probably were deteriorating a little bit at a time, and like to bridge the gap between I just started notice myself getting weaker or stairs are getting a little bit harder. Well, that's the time that I would love to see a patient, because it's not a whole lot of visits. Let's get you back on the right track. Here's some tests to prove that we need some work. And then here's the training to get you back into the shape you want to be in.
Right.
Because we can work on that.
Right.
I guess another one that I forgot about earlier was getting up off the floor is a really key sign. Can you get up and down from the floor?
Yeah.
Is a key sign of, number one, if you're going to fall, but also another sign of longevity.
Yeah. The feet are important.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And, there's probably therapy that physical therapists can provide that would help with balance. And, it's probably getting in that routine, right?
Right.
Even if it's 10, 15 minutes a day, working on some of these deficiencies.
Right. And so with the right challenges, our body will adapt. So it's called neuroplasticity, where our body always has an ability to learn and adapt and change. But you have to challenge it at the right increments and the right amount. Physical therapists, occupational therapists, we're trained to do that. Also, like working with a personal trainer can help with those things too. I look at it as if you're a little bit fearful of doing something new or different and you need a little bit more guidance, maybe that's where a physical therapist or an occupational therapist can come in to help with that. Whereas if you're confident in what you can do, you're just not sure what to do, that's where maybe working with a personal trainer can be effective too. Yeah.
Right. It would seem that a sport like hockey would be helpful for balance. I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but yoga would be, the tree pose.
Right. And that's even where if you are a walker, you do like being outside. Walking on the same type of surfaces all the time. So if you're used to walking on flat pavement at a certain pace, at a certain speed, that doesn't have hills, doesn't have the challenges of an unstable surface, maybe the first thing for you might be, I need to walk faster. So between these two driveways, I'm going to walk faster here and do that intervals to challenge it, because that's going to challenge your balance a little bit more. Because think of it as that there's a static balance, which is like the tree pose.
Sure, right.
But then there's dynamic balance, which is, can I reach, step up and carry something upstairs? That's more of a dynamic balance.
Right.
And our life is full of dynamic balance situations. And that's when we see like it's hard to catch ourselves when we're falling, the stumbling steps, walking on uneven surfaces. So maybe the first place to start for a lot of people might be putting themselves outside, walking up and down hills a little bit. I love going to parks, so walking on, doing the hills and turns, and as you get more confident, off-roading it a little bit. Right. So in the Western New York here, we have a lot of opportunities to do that. You
can always mix in a beach walk too, right?
That would be, in the sand, a little bit unstable. Exactly. So those are ideas where that's a positive move towards balance, because it's going to challenge your footing a little bit. And think of it as like playing hockey. There's changes of speed, there's changes of direction. Right. We don't get that in regular life.
Right. So tell me more about what you're working on. You mentioned that you're trying to fill some of these gaps and connect a few of these dots.
So there is a senior fitness test out there, but it doesn't really kind of challenge, I believe, it doesn't challenge people to their capacities well enough. So it may not fill the gap that we're looking for between, am I someone that is just doing well with functional life, or am I somebody that actually can be challenged and do higher level activity? So what I did is I kind of looked at the typical longevity type tests, and then took a look at this senior fitness test, and I wanted to make it meet the whole where making sure people are being challenged enough. So looking at grip strength, looking at carrying capacities, looking at getting up and down off the floor. Like I said, that 6-minute walk test. So testing people on certain challenges to make sure that we're testing them at their higher capacities. And so again, this is brand new. I just started working on this. And these are, again, tests that we do in the clinic with our patients at times to make sure that they're capable of living the life they want to live. Hopefully we can do some research on this, and then if someone wants to be tested on what's their performance, we can test them on their performance and find out what are the things that we need to focus on, and make sure our treatments or exercises that we prescribe are actually making change for improving their life the way they want to live it.
And focusing on those areas that are deficient and bringing them back up to par.
Correct.
Right? And then, so that it seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It seems to make a lot of sense.
In the clinic, we also have the ability to use force plates. So are we using the right leg just as much as the left leg? Do we have the ability to produce push-off force on both legs adequately? And so we use that in our clinics as someone is maybe coming back from a surgery, but we also use it for events where we're testing out athletes, young athletes, and we've done work with triathletes in the Buffalo area to make sure that they're using both legs adequately. So that's another way that too we can bring in the technologies and help bridge the gap.
And help me with the force plate. Is that more of a weighted push? What is the force plate?
So the force plate is, it's a you stand on it and like we can do jumping off of it. So when we jump, the first thing you do is kind of lower yourself into a squat. So you're measuring that ability to break or slow yourself down and then immediately produce force to leave the ground. And so you're getting an idea of, well, do you do that equally right versus left leg?
Sure, yeah.
And so there are force plates on the ground that you're either squatting
or you're favoring another leg.
Right. And then you can do single leg activity off of it too. So if I'm looking at a single leg squat on one leg, I can decide, well, is the right leg doing what it should be doing in comparison to the left, and then also independently. So there are markers for us to measure that, well, you should be able to produce X amount of force because you weigh this much and you're trying to get back to these activities.
Right. We're here with Eric Herman, partner of Buffalo Rehab Group, who's going to make us all healthier. You talked about like the pushing down on the plate. You know, if you're favoring one leg, for example, you're then throwing your entire body out of whack from your hips to your neck.
Yeah. I just saw a patient today that, you know, her symptoms are in her neck, in her shoulder. What we found as we were working through her is that it actually comes from her pelvis. So she leans over top of one leg, and that lean over the top of one leg changes how she compensates up above. So we see that with tennis players, we see that with throwers, we can see that on the ice in hockey. So very often when we see someone for a back problem, it has to do with how they're transferring force from one foot versus the other.
Yeah. Wanted to talk a little bit as we start to wrap up. We want to talk a little bit about your journey. And I know, Eric, in talking to you over the past few weeks, you've got really a multi-generational family of hockey players, and it seems as if, you know, that longevity is part of the family DNA. So just give us a little background on your history and the importance of health for your family.
Yeah, my grandpa played hockey until he was in his 60s. My mom actually played hockey for a little bit when she was a teenager.
She didn't play hockey with Bonnie, though.
No. My mom is in her 60s, yeah. And so my father played hockey, still plays hockey.
Yeah.
He's in his late 60s. He's had both of his hips replaced, and he still continues to play goaltender with 2 hip replacements.
So he's getting up and down.
Yes, he is. Yes. And I actually play with him on Sundays. We play in a pickup hockey together.
Great.
Yeah. My sister played hockey growing up. I had an opportunity to play with her senior year, my junior year of high school. She was on our varsity team, and then she played Division I hockey at Cornell. Myself, I played all through high school and college and men's league and coached hockey. I have kids that play. All 3 of my kids played. My daughter played for a few years. Yeah, my brother plays hockey. He coaches. His 2 girls play. So we're a hockey family.
That's great. Well,
my sister-in-law actually picked up hockey in her 40s, so just recently. So because her daughters played, and she wanted to be on the ice with them, and so Bonnie's story is impressive. Really, what she was able to do, and not think anything of it. It's just who she was. Made the comeback.
Yeah.
And
common bond is that sheet of ice, right?
It is.
So you brought up your father with 2 hip replacements.
Yes.
I actually also play, and I have, there's a running tally of how many artificial parts I think are on the ice at any given time. That being said, I think it's important for our listeners and our viewers to realize, whether it's a hip replacement, whether it's a knee replacement, that's not a reason to stop playing. Actually, the reason to have that surgery is so that you can continue to do what you want to do. So what have you seen with your patients?
Well, with any surgery, it takes time to get back to the activities that you want to get back to. So to get back to walking after a hip replacement or knee replacement, relatively speaking, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. But if you want to get back to higher level activity, you have to train harder for that. I think very often people stop rehab at a certain point when I can do my regular life. But are you doing the life that you really want to be living?
Yeah.
It takes more.
Yeah.
And it takes more time. It takes more energy. And it takes harder exercises. You're not going to be able to just get back to doing what you want to be doing. If you need to be able to walk, then go upstairs, then walk on uneven surfaces, then lift things, then get up off the floor. And then now we can start training for sports and hockey and tennis and running.
Yeah. It's also important that, we keep that activity, but I know from personal experience having a new knee that there's apprehension to move. And it's sometimes it's more between the ears than it is the body.
Completely agree. And so having someone that is trained like a physical therapist to be able to coach you the right way, right? Like
and push you,
and
a little bit of push,
and test too, though, right? Like
right.
that some of that is push is to realize what you can and can't do. So that's why I really like the force plates. I really like having objective measures. So I use a yardstick or to measure how well people can do things, or even like we use, it's called a dynamometer to measure force. And so to prove to somebody, hey, you can do this, or maybe sometimes it's like, you know what, the reason why you can't do this yet is because you can't produce that force.
Right.
So using objective tools to show someone what they can and can't do, and then also correlate that with the activity they want to try to get back to is super important. And that gives someone hope. My job as a therapist is actually to provide hope that they continue to get better as long as we're doing the right things and challenging the body right way. Our bodies are inherently lazy. This is the truth of it. We always find the path of least resistance. Part of our role as a physical therapist, occupational therapist, the same way, is to find a way to challenge the person so they can use the muscles in the right way that they're designed to be used.
One thing I did want to get to before we let you go is, we had Bonnie Shea was on our program maybe a month or so back, and she's a great author who's swimmer, but now she's gotten into, later in her years, younger than me, but probably around your age, getting back into weight training.
Oh, yeah.
There was a theory that I remember that, you want to stay away from the heavy weights. But now it seems to be a little bit more of a trend with weight training. What are you seeing, and what are you seeing with your patients, and what's the research say?
So weight training is super important. We should be strength training twice a week. So the World Health Organization put out parameters for healthy living. We should be 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise every week. And if you can get up to 300, that's even better. But then you also should be doing 2 days a week of strength training. Strength training is really important.
And is that repetitions? Is it, what is it? Is it?
You should be challenging your body. So you should be challenging. It should feel hard.
Yeah.
So lift heavy stuff like that. But it's all relative for the individual. And so this is kind of what maybe there is fear behind it for people that I don't want to do that because I'm afraid I might get hurt. Well, then you should be working with someone to help you get over that fear, because really what's going to help us stay healthy long term is if you're lifting heavy things. We're capable of lifting heavy things. Bonnie is a perfect example.
Right.
She's capable of doing it.
She's out on the lake.
Right. She never stopped doing it.
Right.
And that's why she can still do it. So I encourage people to lift heavy. We do in our clinic as much as we can, and it is getting over fears. So I had a patient not that long ago where my goal for her was that she should be able to lift her age by her next birthday, and it was 65. So my goal for her was within 2 months, she started out lifting 25 pounds, and she was afraid of lifting 25 pounds. Our goal was to get her lifting 65 pounds in the 2 months.
That's a big jump.
It is a huge jump, and she did it.
Awesome.
And it was
Yeah.
mostly fear.
Yeah.
She was afraid of lifting heavy.
Right.
And we taught her that she's capable.
Right.
And we had to improve some grip strength. Yes, we had to improve some strength other places, but it's mostly we get in our own way because we don't try it enough. And it feels straining. Well, that strain is what's going to make us stronger. We adapt through the right challenges. Our bodies are designed to adapt through the right challenges.
Right.
And the only way to do that is by actually doing it.
So, Eric, it just seems with the research that's out there, and now the research and the testing that you're now getting involved in, kind of what is the state of what I would call the performance industry?
Yeah, so as we're all learning globally, there's more and more people that are challenging everyone to improve, and which is great. So there's more opportunities out there for all of us to be working with a trainer. There's more trainers that are well trained to be able to safely work with individuals to let them be more comfortable. I have good friends, and my wife and myself. We work out with trainers, and so we see someone that builds programming for us. And I'm a physical therapist. I can build my own programming, but to rely on someone to to be able to coach me, I want to have that ability. So there are a lot more opportunities out there. There's also more opportunities to test. We do test our community. So we do performance combines, we call them, with young athletes, and we've worked with adults also to give them their kind of benchmarks to know what they need to work on. And there's people doing that all over the nation, really. I know people that are doing it in different cities around the United States, and there's also better equipment out there. So there's new ways that we can challenge it. So using blood flow restriction cuffs, so BFR cuffs, is a good way to challenge our bodies with less load. Also, direct current electric stim is another avenue. We use ARP wave in our clinics, and that's where we can provide more stimulus to the muscles to create adaptation without the load and stress of more weight. So if that's a good way to maybe someone that's a little bit fearful of getting into activity, don't want to use heavy weights, but we can still stimulate the muscles by using technology. So performance industry is growing because there's more individuals that have better training and know how to adapt and change exercises for individuals with different challenges, whether they've had previous injury, but also technology is becoming more available to everybody, not just professional athletes. So you'll be able to have the right challenges for anybody that needs it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we went down that path a bit, because this is, after all, a sports business program, and the business of performance is growing, as you said. So it's and just we can get smarter about it. And what I loved is what we talked about earlier is, this should be used preventative.
Correct.
Versus waiting for that traumatic injury to try to get better. This can actually prevent that injury.
For adults and for youth athletes, we're able to find compensations before injuries happen. Yes.
Right.
So with the right training, then you're preventing injuries. We do dynamic warm-ups for youth sports. We build programming and strength and conditioning program for coaches to be able to go through with their athletes, because ultimately we're looking to keep people healthy.
Right.
When someone is discharged from us from physical therapy, we're trying to build programming to keep them mobile, stable, and strong so they can stay active. But ultimately it's comes into an individual needs to take advantage of the tools out there to help keep themselves healthy so they can stay active longer. And that's ultimately what we want to do. Like I have a patient just came to mind that's similar to Bonnie. She was in her 80s, and she told me, as I asked her as she was leaving for the day, I asked her, what are you up to the rest of the day? And she goes, I'm going to help out the old people. I'm like, what? You're 80? She goes, I volunteer at the nursing home with a bunch, and I usually am working with the late 60, early 70-year-olds. I'm like, whoa, you're 80 and you're saying you're helping out the old people. She goes, I don't act old.
Right.
And so this was an individual that she kept herself active and she pushed herself to be active, and she looked at it, her volunteering time was volunteering with people that maybe didn't do that, didn't take advantage of that. So again, challenge ourselves is very, very important.
That's great. Well, Eric, I want to thank you for the input. We walked into this conversation with the goal of how can we all be more like Bonnie Shea, right?
Yes.
and it's continue to stay active, lift heavy things, work in the yard, which is great exercise.
Yes,
and any last words of wisdom?
Challenge yourselves. That's the biggest thing, is that put yourself in positions that are a little bit uncomfortable. Our bodies grow and adapt through, honestly, discomfort.
Well, we want to get you back here, Eric. I really appreciate you spending the time with us. There's so many topics that we can now dive into, because it's a growing and very important industry within sports and performance. So thanks for everything you do.
Sounds great. Thank you, John.
Okay, we'll see everybody next week. Skin in the Game is a production of Buffalo Toronto Public Media. You can catch up with all past episodes on btpm.org or on the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.